This background sucks. Who? This looks like a Havana nightclub.
It does give me a vibe of. Did you ever play Grand Theft Auto Vice City?
Yes.
And like the Malibu.
Yeah. This is Miami Vice, baby. This is trying too hard to recreate the Dice Tower vibe here.
Overshot it significantly. What's happening, party people? Welcome to Punchboard Party. My name is Daniel. This is Father Greg, and we got new lights. Father Greg doesn't like them.
We sure did.
I've been wanting a look like this for a very long time. I don't know if I nailed it, so please let me know in the comments down below. Let us know what you think about this new set, if we should kind of go back to just kind of our normal background, just sort of nothing fancy with the lighting, or if this is an improvement from our previous videos. But enough of that shenanigans. You're here to talk about the top 10 board games on Board Game Geek. And party people, this is an exciting video because we get to talk about Ark Nova, which skyrocketed.
The brand new, the newcomer.
Yeah, like super new, knocked War of the Ring off the list, and is keeping on its ascension.
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness for that. We do not need to play War of the Ring anymore. So
that's right. This
that's
is a mercy.
great.
This is a mercy. Although, from our Rebellion experience, I feel
that's
like
true. I would have been excited.
I think we might have enjoyed War of the Ring quite a bit. We might do it as a bonus video we talked about,
right?
Just to pay honor to War of the Ring, our fallen comrade,
to the game that once was good.
That's right. And now it's terrible. It's terrible. Sitting at 11, a hunk of garbage. This is at 7 now.
That's wow. Yeah. I mean, we'll tell you if that's true to form or not.
Yeah. So we're gonna give you our real insights. So what we do in these videos is we take a look at the comments from Board Game Geek, real people, real users like yourself who have opinions about these games. We're gonna use those as our launching pad to talk about different aspects of this game and give you a nice, rich look at what Ark Nova has to offer, what we think about it, and ultimately whether we think it deserves its spot on the Board Game Geek Top 10. So without any further ado, Father Greg, can you kick us off with our first comment this evening?
There is a user named John, which that could be a bot. So
John D, I assume.
That could. Oh yeah, there we go. John D. That makes sense. John D says,
John. Hey, John.
Anyways, he rates us. I'll put these two comments together. So he rates it a 7, and he says, there's nothing mechanically original here, as each mechanic has been taken from another title, but this feels like a refinement of each, and the whole is very pleasing to play. So on a similar line, J.M. Smith 2434, quoting Mark Stang, I don't know who Mark Stang is, but
if you know Mark Stang, shout out.
Yeah, so Mark Stang says this, but it's apparently, I mean, we can't verify if Mark Stang actually quotes this, but Mark Stagg says, it's a card, tile laying, polyomino-ish, worker placement, action selection, hand management racing game. So,
That's right.
I feel like that kind of gets to a little bit of, for good or for bad, what kind of this game is. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different mechanics. You've got this little row of cards in front of your little player area, and the longer you don't do an action, the better it gets. You want to kind of wait till this action like slides down to its number 5 spot, and then that's when it's at its best, and then you can use it, but then it slides back down to its level 1. And so there's kind of this thing where you can't just do the same action over and over again. You have to kind of flow through the different 5 actions that this game gives you. But then there's also like tile placement. You're putting tiles on the board, and sometimes they don't fit where you want them to fit, and you need to put them next to water, and you need to put them next to rocks, and cover up these different tiles. There's like a little barren part kind of thing involved. And then you've got this card thing where you're picking up a bunch of cards and you're playing certain cards into a tableau. And then you've got this like other board where you're going
tracks. You're doing
all tracks. Raws of the Ganges.
And then there's the Raws of the Ganges scoring, where you have two different types of scoring points, and once those two markers meet, then that triggers the end game. Yeah, this game should get the award for the most crammed together mechanisms in a board game. Like, it's an achievement what this accomplishes while still being a coherent whole. And the fact that the mechanisms that borrows are kind of the cleverest, most unique, coolest mechanisms from their respective games that these mechanisms are most known for. So when people talk about Rushes of the Ganges, the thing they talk about the most is probably the scoring tracks. And that's in this game. When we're talking about Baron Park, it's about that, this is like, at one point that was a unique kind of concept to try and fit things in. So this takes kind of the best of the best and puts it all together. How do you think it works?
Yeah, so I think that's going to kind of depend upon whether you like those various mechanics. I think there's going to be different people who are going to be like, I really love that little action selection mechanism. I hate the tile placement. Other people are going to be like, I love the tile placement. I thought the card drafting was really weird. Or like just these different sort of mechanics. So I think there's because there's a lot in this game, there's going to be something in this game that you're really going to like. There's going to also be something in this game that you're like, I don't really know why that was there.
I think that's a really good point because it affects the overall experience, and it affected my overall experience of I love this, I'm bored by that. And so I didn't have a consistent game experience. After my first play of this, I put up an Instagram post that was just like, not sure what to think of this. Like I was really conflicted, and I think you nailed it for me. That because it offers all these kind of different mechanisms and each aspect of the game kind of feels like you're playing a different style of Eurogame, you can kind of be in your wheelhouse and then not within a matter of turns. And it's just sort of like an inconsistent feeling. Well, at the same time though, the whole still stays together. I didn't mean to bash the game at this point. I don't think it's bad, but it's just an interesting feeling. I'm just grateful that you put words to the feeling that I had during these playthroughs.
Great.
Okay, Ryman's coming in with a 7. Ark Nova does a great job of showing you tons of cool stuff and then letting you have none of it. There is some ability to build an engine, but it's easy to get stuck in a catch-22 situation. Treating it less as an engine builder and more of a semi-Euro will help at first playthrough. Okay, so why I chose this comment was just this notion of this game being an engine builder. A lot of people have compared it to Terraforming Mars, and we'll talk about that a little bit more down the road. Terraforming Mars is an engine builder through and through. So if you hear that this game is like Terraforming Mars, I think you have been done a disservice. Because you're going to go in and you're going to think, okay, I'll get this card, which will let me build an African animal. And so there must be a card in that deck that will score me points for the number of African animals that I have, or whatever the case. And there's sparsed pretty wide. And there's continent types, there's animal types, so there's a lot of variety in the different types of cards that are available to you, and you're not going to see the same kind of synergy that you see in a pure engine builder like Terraforming Mars. And so I would not call this game an engine builder at all. I would just say that this is an action selection Eurogame.
I think that's generally true. I mean, the only really engine building thing is that the more animals you get, the more income you get. So you kind of, as you move up on this victory point track, you get certain income points based on where you are. So yes, as the game kind of scales along, you're less concerned about money because you're getting more and more money each turn. And then certain cards will benefit, you might need 3 rhinos to play this card or whatever, or 3 bears, and so you get your 3 bears and then you can play this card. But it's not like with each bear your engine kind of speeds up. It's just you need a requirement to play this. So yes, in the end of the game you're going a little bit faster than you were in the beginning, but I don't feel like you've really created an engine that has kind of sped up to that point.
And the blue cards, the sponsors or the sponsorships, they're kind of the engine building vessel, but you have them in front of you and they're the kind of the cards that are every time you do X, get Y. But it's light. It's really light. It doesn't come into play all that often because the amount of opportunities you have to play the X, because the deck is so big, doesn't come into play as often as it would to actually make that feel like an engine. So very interesting. I would say a helpful thing for me would have been if someone said, hey, this plays a lot more like Everdell than it does Terraforming Mars.
Right.
Where you have cards in your hand that have certain requirements to be played, and so you kind of got to do the work to get those things together to play the card, and then you're kind of back to square one. You have some benefit. You have some of the cards you've already played will help you build other things, but you're still kind of working the whole game.
I still feel like this game is very Terraforming Mars-y, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Yeah.
But I mean, I think there, even the comments, the majority of comments compared this to Terraforming Mars. Like every second comment was like, either this is better than Terraforming Mars, this is worse than Terraforming Mars, this is exactly like Terraforming Mars. But everyone was comparing it to Terraforming Mars.
Yeah, and that's so interesting to me.
It's an interesting kind of thing. So
I see it and I disagree.
Cool,
but we'll talk about it.
Along the line of that. That deck, especially the card aspect of it, there is a fair bit of maybe luck that's involved in that card draw. And so Core Commander rated this game a 3 and said, it's Mario Party levels of randomness without the fun. So there's there's a hefty amount of randomness. I feel like if I am comparing this to Terraforming Mars, where in Terraforming Mars, you can reasonably expect that over the course of a game, you're going to get probably like a number of cards that synergize with one strategy or another. You'll get a couple cards that give you energy. You'll get a couple cards that will provide you some greenery. But in this game, like, you might start and say, okay, I'm going to build a petting zoo. And I'm going to get every single petting zoo animal that comes across. And over the course of the whole game, you might see 2.
I mean, that happened to you.
None. Yeah.
You had a petting zoo all ready to go. You got one goat in there. And then I came along sort of mid to like 3/4 of the way through the game. And I built like 3 petting zoo animals.
Right.
Just like I've on a whim. Yeah, so kind of, yeah.
So you can definitely...
You can't count on anything.
That's right, and the same thing goes for all the other things. You're trying to find a bunch of large animals, or you're trying to find a bunch of small animals, or herbivores, or whatever. Like, whatever it is you're looking for, there's a huge deck, and not many of the things in that deck actually satisfy the requirement you're looking for.
Yes.
And so whatever it is that you're looking for, you're gonna have, like, there's gonna be times when one of the end goals is, like, to have 4 reptiles in your park, and... Thankfully, in our time, we had a bunch of reptiles that showed up early on, but it could have very easily been the case that no reptiles showed up for the first, 10 turns of the game.
Yeah, that's right. So this dovetails nicely into one of my comments.
Sure.
This is Dale 12. Too long, 2 card, luck dependent, and I can't cycle through the cards enough to fish for the one I want. In a game this big and long, I don't want to be at the whim of this enormous deck of cards. I'm good never playing this again. This was a 5. And so this is the problem that we're talking about.
Right.
And you can see it as a problem, or you can see it just as how the game works.
Right.
And so for me, I recognize this, that, okay, he makes an excellent point. Dale 12 makes an excellent point. For a game this long and involved, it's a strange choice.
Right.
To have this kind of a variation in the deck and this kind of randomness. At the same time, a buddy of ours that we played with, Daniel, also, you'll see him in the footage here, he looked up some strategy guides last night. And he found that one guy was recommending always upgrading the card's ability first.
Oh, okay.
And so that allows you to be drawing more cards from the top of the deck. You can draw more cards right from the card row as long as you have the right amount of kind of education or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Moved along. And so it can get you cycling through that deck pretty good. I went fishing quite a bit in this game, and I came up with what I was looking for most of the time. But it was an intentional hunt.
Right.
I definitely kind of tried it out. I upgraded my cards card early, and then just kind of went for that, tried it out, and it turned out okay. But it could have very easily not have. And I suspect that I wasted time trying to look for cards that would make my current strategy work rather than just pivoting to the next card that was available in my hand and just do what it did.
Right. And I think that's the upside to that is that it forces you to be very tactical with your play, because you might start out, the game might tell you, oh, you want to have a bunch of Asian animals. So you're like, okay, good, let's collect a bunch of Asian animals. And then you maybe have one in your hand, but there's none in the card row. You draw another 4 cards. There's no Asian animals in there. And then you kind of decide okay, well, I guess I'm switching. Let's go find some birds now. And so you just kind of change your your strategy, but then you might go for birds for like 2 or 3 rounds and then decide to come back once the Asian animals start showing up on the board. So you kind of have to be really flexible with the cards. And so if you're somebody who comes into a game who's like, no, you know what? From the very beginning, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a petting zoo. I'm going to build all the petting zoo animals I can find. I'm going to collect a bunch of American animals, and that's just going to be it. Like, you're going to hate this game probably.
Yeah, you're going to have a frustrating experience. Mm-hmm. You're going to come out thinking this game is trash. You're going to say, why would anybody play this? How do people say this is at the level of Terraforming Mars? Da, 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 da.
Right.
But you're going in expecting the wrong game.
Mm-hmm.
You're expecting the wrong core mechanisms. You're expecting the wrong stuff. And I would say this is where the conservation scoring cards come in really handy.
Right.
I would say that the core of this game is the action selection kind of 5 action card row that you have in front of you. The secondary core mechanism, I would say, are the conservation point cards.
Right.
Because that's going to give you your direction for how you're going to be able to set yourself up nicely to score some points. And so you're always kind of referring back to those cards. And the great thing is that those cards also come up randomly out of the deck, so you can kind of play a conservation card from your personal hand. This game is full of situations where if you build towards something for a little while,
right,
chances are a card is going to come up that's going to give you points for that thing.
That's right.
So just kind of do your thing and have a good time, and things will fall into place for better or for worse. Now that sounds like this is like, well, this is fully luck dependent, then.
Right.
I think you can make an argument both ways.
Yeah, you're right. Like, you're right. If you take, if you just have like a few reptiles, a few birds, you might eventually draw a card, and it's like, oh, now you want birds. And you're like, great, I've got a couple of those. Or, shoot, I threw away all my birds. Not that luck is antithetical to strategy. Like, those two I don't think are complete opposites. You can have a game that's entirely driven by luck. You're rolling dice or whatever, but you're betting on probability. There's kind of a strategy of like, well, how am I going to maximize the luck that is in this game? That's a type of strategy. So I think that type of strategy does play into this game. You have to bank on you not being able to get the cards that you want.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
All right. Okay, so for our next comment coming in from Bayushi Suzaru, this is an 8. So this is a nice, solid rating. Ark Nova is a tableau building game with some vibes a la Terraforming Mars, with a more mainstream theme that plays very differently to its predecessor. What really stands out is the action selection mechanism, forcing choices between what you want to do and something else that's momentarily stronger. The game has lots of things going on, but it flows quicker than I expected, even though it is probably best in 2 or 3 players. The only weakness I find is multiplayer solitaire nature, but there is some minor interaction here and there. The urge of playing it again is strong. Okay, so that's a full, robust comment, but what I want to hone in on is this core action selection mechanism. So what we're talking about is you have 5 cards in front of you. There's 5 different actions in the game. On your turn, you pick one of those actions to do, and they allow you to do certain things, whether it be draw cards, whether it be build a habitat, whether it be move one of your associates to this separate associate board where you can gain some things that will move you up on tracks to get you certain bonuses. There's different actions that you can do. Depending on the slot that card is in, it is going to do a lesser or more powerful version of that action. The higher the card is, the more cards you can draw with the cards card. The higher the slot is, the more animals you can play from your hand, when you do that action. What's really cool is after you do the action, you take that card and you move it to the back of the row and then slide everything else up. So everything is cycling through, and this is like, whoa, super cool, unique action. And then you also have the benefit of, on the tracks that you're moving up all over the boards, you'll be able to trigger action where you can flip a card to a more powerful version of that action. This is awesome. This is so cool. This is amazing. And it is like, you don't see it in other games. It's not there. But then all of a sudden, as soon as Ark Nova came on the scene, everyone was raving about this. All of a sudden, Civilization: A New Dawn started getting talked about. And this is a game that's sitting in like the 650 range on BGG. So I say anything above 1,000, a solid game.
Right.
All I mean to say is that This core game mechanism from Ark Nova is straight from Civilization New Dawn. It's the exact same core game mechanism that works. And why I bring this up is that the whole time I was playing Ark Nova, I wanted more of that experience. But every action you do has a cascade effect where you're doing this and you're doing that and you're doing the other thing and then the other player does their thing, then you come back to that action. And like we mentioned early on in the video, there's some things in this game that aren't as interesting to some players as the other things. So when I'm doing that cool action selection, but the action I'm selecting is the building a habitat, and I'm forced to play this stupid Tetris puzzle, I was really angry about this. The point is, I wished that there was a different game that I could play that I liked all of the things that I was doing with this action selection mechanism. And so I'm really curious to play the Civilization New Dawn if there's a game that I prefer with that core mechanism. I don't know. Right. I don't know. But there's a good chance because it's like fairly well regarded. So I'm like curious. I don't know. What do you think of this core memechanism? Do you like it as much as I do? Maybe not.
I think I don't like it as much as you. You were like exploding off your seat there in excitement of this. So yeah, I think it's neat. It's a pretty cool kind of, fairly innovative kind of thing of like you have 5 actions, and I like that anytime there's a game with actions, like I like that each action's on its own little card. So it's like pick one card. That's all you're doing for your action. Just pick a card. Do whatever that card says. When you flip over the card, it will enhance that action. So maybe you'll draw more cards, or you'll be able to now draw them from a row that you can see. So previously you're just kind of drawing them blind from the deck. Now you're drawing them from a row of like available options that you can choose from. That's kind of neat. Some of those things are interesting. The ways that you can kind of like, just sort of choose like, oh, well, which action do I want to upgrade first? And that there's certain like gates at the game that you can't do something unless you have the upgraded card. So you can't build a certain animal unless you have the Admiral 2 card, or you can't advance your reputation. You can only get so far unless you have the upgraded cards action. So there's all these little things that I thought that was interesting. I thought that was really, for sure, that was one of like the brain crunching moments.
And this is a really brilliant thing, because you're only ever going to be able to upgrade 4 of your 5 actions. Mm-hmm. So you're always going to get locked out of something. So last game we played, neither of us upgraded our animals card. So that lets you play more animals from your hand. It's kind of like you can make do without upgrading your animals card for the main kind of play of playing animals.
Right.
However, there's animals that you can only play if you've upgraded your animal card. And they're usually worth quite a bit of points. They're usually pretty hefty, sizable, have cool actions associated with them after you play them. So I was locked out of some of those. And there was a situation where I had a reptile sanctuary that right after we had both gotten lots of reptiles, they just sort of dried up.
That's right.
And I had 4 spots left in my reptile sanctuary, and I had a giant turtle that was going to take 4 spots, but I didn't have my animals upgraded, and I was kind of locked out. So you're making choices. You're making choices all the way through this game. So there's a lot in that one mechanism, and it feeds the whole game. And I think it carries the game for me, but it carries it well.
So this is a 1. So this is pretty bad. Somebody doesn't like this game, but they offer a number of different sort of things that they think are bad about it, I guess. So Dragos BR says Solitaire, restrictive, luck prone, overrated, shares many traits with Terraforming Mars, which I equally abhor. Worst game I played this year so far. I couldn't wait to be done, and I thank the player who triggered the end. So I think mainly the one thing I want to focus on is the kind of the Solitaire aspect of it. And I think this kind of goes into game length as well. So this game is largely concerned with what you are doing on your little board. You're building your own little tableau. I think Terraforming Mars has a bit more player interaction where like you're actually putting stuff onto the board. You are creating your own little tableau, but like there is this kind of central board that you're manipulating, where here everything's on your own little personal board. So there might be a card that your opponent has that says every time a bear gets played in any zoo, you gain $3 or something. It's like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to play a bear, but then again, this guy gives me 9 points, so I'm probably just going to play him anyways. So that feeling, I think, and I like solitaire, like multiplayer solitaire games. That doesn't bother me. I can enjoy sitting down at a table just kind of minding my own business and just sort of doing my own little thing. I think the downside to that is if I have nothing really to do on your turns because I don't really care what you're doing, I just wanted to come back to my turn, I think I enjoy this much more with 2 players than I would with larger groups. We played it once with 3. I've played it twice with 2. Dan just played it once with the 2 of us.
Yeah.
And I think like it's probably about like an hour per player. Like a 2-player game took us about 2 hours. 3-player game took us about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And so like a 4-player game, you're just going to be sitting.
I'm not interested.
Waiting for your turn to come around.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
So I think that would be a potential downside. But I've seen like the solitaire part of it, I enjoy. And so in a 2-player game, I think I would play this a couple times more, for sure.
Yeah. So I would play this again at 3, and I think playing it with the 3 that we already played it with, right? We'd shave off some of the time there that way,
for sure.
But like I was pleasantly surprised, not surprised. I was delighted at the 2-player experience because you get everything the game has to offer, and it's just back to your turn a little more quickly. And I think I would like to say that like, no, this isn't solitaire. It is fairly solitary. You are waiting to get back to your turn. The fun part of the game is when you're playing your turn. To date was good. I was like, oh, I could see this having a life on my shelf. I wasn't sure if I could. But sitting at 2 players, it's like, oh yeah, this is right. A great way to spend an evening because there's a lot in this game to explore. And it is fairly fun and whimsical for being a heavy game. This is my last. And it's a 1 as well. We like to end with the 1s.
That's right. The 1s often give better criticisms than the 10s do. The 10s are just like, this is the best game of all time.
Yeah, that's right. We get to really dig into something with the 1s. So this is Lowton, rating it a 1. Absolutely a slog to play, not a fun experience. Okay, so for me, this is... I see this. I see the shadow of this comment lurking as I played. And there was certain moments... In the 3-player game more, and I think that's why I connected it here, is in the 2-player game I had less of this experience, but in the 3-player game there were moments of kind of boredom. While I was playing my turn, I loved the game. When I wasn't playing my turn, I didn't like the game. And this was kind of my experience the first time around. Second time around, it was a lot more to like.
Right.
And so I'm curious about the player count and how it affects the experience.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we complained about it in Terraforming Mars, and it might be worse in this game.
I would say it is worse.
So I think that's about probably the same time length to play.
So yeah, that is definitely a downside for this game that can be apparent. Playing it at 2 alleviates a lot of that complaint, though. So what we gotta talk about, though, what we normally do, is if you like the sounds of this, what are games that you could be bringing to your shelf instead, or if you don't like this and you're looking for something kind of in that similar vein, what are you going to be playing? We already mentioned a couple games.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what I'm sticking with myself. What do you got to bring to the table?
Yeah, so for sure, like, just to finish up on like a little bit of Terraforming Mars, like I think that's the biggest comparison. I think it's a fitting one. I felt like Terraforming Mars. I found myself at least always comparing it, even myself. I was like, oh, I like this maybe a bit better than Terraforming Mars. I like this a bit worse. But that sense of like, I'm drawing a bunch of cards. I'm playing them in a slightly different way, of course. But this kind of idea, I like the theme better in this. So yeah, that theme, although some people in the 1s were like, zoos are horrible places and you should never support them. I have no idea. I kind of like zoos, I guess. But like, whatever.
Well, here's the thing. I don't buy that. It's just, zoos are boring. Like, it's a boring theme. Look, I felt the same way with Terraforming Mars. Just like boring, normal themes. Yuck.
So yeah, so mechanically, I think this game is very rich, and so. But you're right. With all those different mechanisms out there, I think there's a lot of different things. If you really like the cards, you might like Terraforming Mars more. If you really like the tile placement, you might like Barren Park more.
Yeah.
Or you mentioned Everdell. It's another sort of fitting comparison in that like. You've got this big deck of cards. Another person was Wingspan, like this idea of each card being kind of unique. You're never going to run into the same card. That's cool. It also means there's a lot of variety and randomness in the cards you draw. But if you enjoy that aspect, you might really like Wingspan.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. And I'd be hard-pressed, party people, to think that, but maybe not, that you haven't played Everdell or Wingspan. But if you haven't, and Ark Nova sounds too heavy for you, too hard to get to the table, a little too complex.
Right.
Everdell is a fitting replacement for that kind of like Gateway plus. I would give it 2 pluses, but you know, a really great experience where you have a core mechanism that kind of drives how you play your cards, and that's the worker placement dimension, Everdell, and here it's a action selection. And then it's all about getting those cards out into your tableau, and you're going to have to work to get them there.
Right.
And Everdell provides enough resistance that's not just a gimme. You feel smart, you feel clever when you're playing Everdell. So it's not a perfect comparison, but I think it...
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
I think it works pretty well. And then the recommendation that I can't really give, but I'm going to, because I'm going to run out and buy this game pretty soon, is that Civilization New Dawn. I'm really excited to see what it has in common or what it brings to the table, what it did differently. One thing that it did differently was instead of upgrading the cards for those actions, you have kind of like a small deck of like 4 cards that correspond to each action type. And you can kind of choose which way you upgrade it.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I'm excited to check that out. And so, party people, moment of truth. Ark Nova at 7 on the top 10 games on Board Game Geek.
Right.
Does it deserve its place? What's your final thoughts and verdict on Ark Nova?
Yeah, so I really go back and forth on whether I like this game more than Terraforming Mars.
It's interesting. You're still hanging on to that comparison.
I really do. I know I am. Like,
see, I don't think it's strong, but yeah.
Oh man, for me for me one will kill the other one. If I get rid of one, I don't need the other one. And
yeah, that's interesting.
Like for me, that's just so. And I don't know which one is destroy the other one, but like I don't think Terraforming Mars deserves to be in the top 10. So I don't think this one. Like
okay,
I enjoyed it though. It's a solid 8 for me. It's a solid which is like strongly like above average. You know, it's a game that could be in my top 100, like in the lower 60 and below kind of range. That's a solid game for me. But yeah, I would certainly play it again, especially at 2 players. I don't feel like a need to like play it again right away tomorrow. It's not that type of game where it's like every time I'm like, oh, have you played Ark Nova? Oh, it's so good. Yourself?
Yeah, so Ark Nova for me, it's getting an 8. A strong 8, really good showing. I do like this better than Terraforming Mars if we're going to play that game. I think that this is fairly high on all the games we played so far on the top 10. Pretty fun. Deceptively fun. But it gets me through, but I'm not very good at it. It is a little difficult for me to kind of do well at. But the 2-player experience definitely saved it for me.
Right.
Before we played a 2-player, I wouldn't have been saying what I was saying about the game. With a 2-player experience, I could see this in my collection. I could see getting it to the table with the right kind of people. All right, party people, that's Ark Nova. Thank you for watching this list. Please share this video, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. There's lots of comments. A lot of people are stumbling upon Sarah's top 10 board games again. Like it's kind of getting a little bit of resurgence. And people are saying, more Sarah. So we're going to get more Sarah on the channel, of course. Party people. Again, let us know what you think about the light situation. Thank you for letting us share love and joy of board games that we have with you. Until next time, party people.
Go to your local zoo. Enjoy.
Just have the best day.
Well, but I mean,
What about that guy rated 1? He's gonna be so mad that you recommended people go to a zoo.